What is your preference? Or can you stand up here, please? Thank you.
Former Super Bowl champion Darron Lee, a linebacker who played for the Jets, Chiefs, Bills, and Raiders, appeared in a Tennessee courtroom, facing murder charges for the death of his girlfriend.
Remember Darron Lee? The former NFL player we covered, who was arrested back in February for the murder of his girlfriend? Well, there's been a massive update in this case. And honestly, what just came out in court is beyond disturbing. We're talking about evidence that's never been seen before in a murder trial. Evidence that shows just how calculated this whole thing was. And when I tell you what prosecutors found on his phone, you're going to understand why this case has taken such a dark turn. But before we get into these shocking new details, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon. Here at Shadow Crime, we don't just cover cases once and move on. We follow them through to the end, because these victims deserve to have their stories told completely. Now, let's talk about what just happened in court. On March 10th, 2026, there was a preliminary hearing in Hamilton County, Tennessee. This was a moment when prosecutors finally laid out their evidence in open court, and what they revealed sent shockwaves through everyone in that courtroom. Because it turns out, Darron Lee didn't just kill someone. He planned how to cover it up. And the tool he used to plan that cover-up? ChatGPT. Yes, you heard that right. ChatGPT. The artificial intelligence chatbot that millions of people use every day for everything from writing emails to getting recipe ideas. Darron Lee allegedly used it to figure out how to explain away a murder. Let me say that again because I need you to really absorb this. Before he ever called 911, before he ever pretended to be a concerned boyfriend trying to save his partner's life, he sat there with his phone and asked an AI chatbot how to cover up what he'd done. But let's back up for a second, because we also finally learned the victim's name. Her name was Gabriella Carvalho Perpétuo. She was Lee's ex-partner, and for weeks after her death, the media just kept calling her his girlfriend or the victim. But she had a name. She had a life. She had a family who is now suing Lee for $50 million in a wrongful death lawsuit. And she deserves to be remembered as more than just another statistic in someone else's crime. So what exactly did prosecutors find on Lee's phone? Well, they recovered a series of messages between Lee and ChatGPT that started on February 4th. That's the day before first responders found Gabriella already dead in their home. Think about that timeline for a second. He's messaging ChatGPT about the situation a full day before he calls for help, over 12 hours before he dials 911, and acts shocked that something happened to her. And here's where it gets even more twisted. Lee didn't just use ChatGPT under his own name. He created an account under the name Xander Lee, which is a condensed version of his middle name Alexander. And he didn't ask questions about himself or Gabriella directly. No, he made up a fictional woman named Allie. He pretended he was asking advice about a friend's situation, trying to create distance between himself and what was really happening. Let me read you some of the actual messages that prosecutors presented in court, because you need to hear this in his own words. Lee typed to ChatGPT, "Don't know what to do right now. Fiancé did her crazy thing again and now she's messed up. I wake up and she has two swollen eyes. I didn't do anything. Self-inflicted. She stabbed herself, slit her eye? Ick, but she isn't waking or responding. What do I do?" Right there, right in that message, he's already building his defense. He's saying she did it to herself. He's claiming he woke up and found her like this. He's establishing a narrative before he ever talks to police. This isn't panic. This isn't someone frantically trying to save their loved one. This is someone constructing a story. And ChatGPT responded. The AI actually gave him advice. Prosecutors read part of the response in court, and it said, "Here's exactly what to tell your friend. This is the safest way to handle it without framing it as police trouble." Can you believe that? An artificial intelligence program, designed to be helpful, essentially became an unwitting accomplice in helping someone figure out how to avoid calling authorities for a dying woman. Now, ChatGPT had no idea it was being used this way. It's just a program responding to prompts. But Lee knew exactly what he was doing. He kept going with the questions, too. He asked ChatGPT about what physical signs of injury would come from a slip and fall in a bathroom or shower. And remember what Lee told deputies when they arrived? He said he thought maybe Gabriella had fallen in the shower. The exact scenario he'd been researching with ChatGPT hours earlier. He was literally workshopping his alibi with artificial intelligence. In another message, Lee asked what he should tell a friend about handling someone who's non-responsive when that friend doesn't want to call the police. Again, he's framing it like it's about someone else, about a friend situation. But prosecutors argue this was Lee asking for himself. How do I deal with this body without calling authorities? And then there's this final message that just makes your blood run cold. Prosecutors say that in his last exchange with ChatGPT, Lee wrote, "She got blood all over the damn place. Not, I'm scared. Not, I need to help her. Not, what do I do to save her life? Just to complain about the mess, about the blood, like she was an inconvenience to him." District Attorney Cody Womp stood up in that courtroom and said something that's been echoing in my head ever since. She said Lee was asking ChatGPT to be his accomplice. He was asking an AI program, how do I cover this up? What do I say to 911? How do I make this look like an accident? Now, let's talk about what else came out during this preliminary hearing, because the ChatGPT evidence wasn't the only bombshell. Prosecutors also revealed new details about Gabriella's injuries, and they paint an even more horrific picture than what we knew before. We already knew she had a stab wound to her abdomen, black eyes with heavy swelling, bruises all over her body, and a human bite mark on her shoulder. But now we know she also had a severe brain injury and a broken neck. A broken neck. And here's something that shows just how much staging went on at that scene. Gabriella had stab wounds on her legs, but her pants had no cut marks, which means someone put those pants on her after she was stabbed. Someone was dressing the scene. Try and make it look different than what actually happened.
Former Super Bowl champion Darron Lee, a linebacker who played for the Jets, Chiefs, Bills, and Raiders, appeared in a Tennessee courtroom, facing murder charges for the death of his girlfriend.
She's putting saying there, that's why I called 911.
Prosecutors releasing police body camera video showing Lee moments after 29-year-old Gabriella Perpétuo was found dead in the couple's home. Lee saying he didn't know what happened.
What the hell happened? Like, I was out. I was sleeping a long time.
Prosecutors claim Lee asked the artificial intelligence tool ChatGPT for help before calling 911, allegedly typing this message: "I wake up and she has 2 swollen eyes. She stabbed herself, split her eye?" ChatGPT responding, yes, but usually only under specific conditions. The chatbot also saying, here's what to say without framing it as police trouble.
He has conversations, dozens of conversations back and forth with ChatGPT over a 2-day period about what he did to Gabriella Perpétuo in detail. He asks how to cover it up. He asks what to say to 911.
Detectives say Lee, who's pleaded not guilty to all charges, said Perpetuo fell in the shower, but investigators claim evidence shows there was a violent struggle.
Lee remains in custody awaiting trial.
The prosecution also revealed something else during the hearing that completely changes the timeline of this case. District Attorney Womp said it's possible that Gabriella suffered violence for multiple days before her death. Multiple days. This wasn't just one violent incident. This could have been ongoing torture. Can you imagine the terror she must have felt? Being trapped in that house with someone who was hurting her, knowing she couldn't get help. Watching the person who was supposed to love her turn into her worst nightmare. And during all of that, Lee had time to sit there and consult ChatGPT about how to explain it away. He had time to craft a story. He had time to think about what he would say when someone finally discovered what he'd done. Body camera footage was also played during the hearing, and it shows Lee talking to deputies when they first arrived. You can hear him on the video giving his explanation for what happened. He says, "I came down and she was laying on the couch on her side, and then I was like, 'Hey, baby, what do you want to eat?' And she wouldn't say anything. And that's when I called 911 immediately, because I'm like, what is going on? Because when I get up, I'm like, what the hell happened? I was sleeping a long time." He's playing the concerned boyfriend, the guy who just woke up and found his partner unresponsive. But we now know that 12 hours before this performance, He was on his phone asking ChatGPT how to handle someone non-responsive without involving police. And there's more in that body cam footage. Investigators noticed broken glass all over the house, and they asked Lee about it. You know what he told them? He said the glass broke due to rapid temperature change from leaving a window open. He claimed that when they reheated the house, the glass just exploded. Just randomly exploded from temperature change. Does that sound believable to you? The footage also showed the condition of the home. Items were strewn everywhere. The mattress in the master bedroom was sitting on the floor with no bed frame. Even though prosecutors say the couple had moved into that home just 10 days before the incident, the scene looked chaotic, violent. Nothing like the peaceful accident Lee was trying to describe. We also learned more about Lee's criminal history during this hearing, and it goes way beyond what we covered in our first video about this case. Yes, we knew about the October 2022 assault on the mother of his child. We knew about the April 2023 incident where he beat his own mother, punching her in the face 8 to 9 times. We knew about that joke of a plea deal in February 2025, where he got 90 days with 88 suspended. But now we find out he was also on probation in Florida for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon in one county and battery in another county. And he was on probation in Ohio for attempted battery. This man had active probation cases in multiple states. He had shown a clear pattern of violence against women, specifically against women close to him, for years. And somehow he was still walking around free, still able to hurt people. Lee's public defender stood up during the hearing and tried to argue that all the evidence is circumstantial. His lawyer, Mike Little, said, "We don't know what happened inside of that house. We know something happened inside of that house, but we don't know what." But District Attorney Womp fired back hard. She said this crime scene was a different level of sinister. She told the court, "The evidence speaks for itself. There are crime scenes, and then there are crime scenes like this."
Former NFL linebacker Darron Lee back in the spotlight, this time in a Tennessee courtroom, accused of murdering his girlfriend, and prosecutors argue using ChatGPT to try to get away with it.
He asks how to cover it up. He asks what to say to 911.
Lee was arrested last month after sheriff's deputies found his 29-year-old girlfriend, Gabriella Perpétuo, dead inside the couple's home.
Call 911 immediately, but like, what is going on?
In body camera video played in a preliminary hearing, Lee tells deputies he doesn't know what happened, but prosecutors painting a different picture.
She has 2 swollen eyes. I didn't do anything self-inflicted.
That's the lead detective. Reading ChatGPT messages prosecutors say were sent from Lee's phone a day before Perpetuo was found dead, including questions about handling someone non-responsive. ChatGPT, they say, replied, "This is serious, but you can handle it cleanly and protect everyone." Also appearing to reply to a question, writing, "Yes, falls can cause puncture-appearing wounds. They usually don't look like clean knife stabs."
There's a whole new frontier. You have ChatGPT, AI, smartwatches, Alexas, all of those devices can now lead investigators in a criminal case.
Lee's attorney declined to comment. NBC News reached out to ChatGPT's owner, OpenAI, and did not hear back.
Priscilla Thompson joins us now. And Priscilla, there were some strong words from the judge after hearing about some of this evidence.
Yeah, Tom, after hearing this testimony, Judge Torrey Smith is allowing this case to proceed. She said, quote, she is even more convinced that the offense was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Now, as for Lee, he remains in jail, and if convicted on that first-degree murder charge, he could face the death penalty.
And the judge agreed with the prosecution. Judge Torrey Smith found there was enough probable cause to move forward, and she bound this case over to a Hamilton County grand jury. That grand jury will now decide whether to indict Lee and send this case to criminal court for trial. And here's something that should tell you how serious prosecutors are taking this. District Attorney Womb announced that her office is considering pursuing the death penalty in this case. The death penalty. That's how severe, how brutal, how premeditated they believe this murder was. Lee is still sitting in the Hamilton County Jail right now with no bond. He's not going anywhere. And while he sits there, Gabriella's family is moving forward with that $50 million wrongful death lawsuit, seeking both compensatory and punitive damages. They want him to pay for what he took from them. And honestly, no amount of money will ever bring Gabriella back. But at least it's something. At least it's accountability. But here's what really keeps me up at night about this case: the ChatGPT element. Because this is the first time we've seen artificial intelligence used this way in a murder case. Lee essentially used AI as a legal consultant to help him fabricate a cover story. He used technology that's supposed to help people to instead help himself get away with killing someone. And it makes you wonder, how many other people are doing this? How many other crimes are being planned, covered up, or staged with the help of AI chatbots that have no idea they're being weaponized? ChatGPT isn't evil. It's just a tool. But in the wrong hands, it became part of a murder plot. Think about the coldness it takes to do what Lee allegedly did. Gabriella is lying there, dying or already dead, and instead of calling for help immediately, he pulls out his phone and starts typing questions to a chatbot. Instead of trying to save her, he's trying to save himself. He's thinking about his story, his alibi, his freedom, not her life. And then he waits. He waits over 12 hours. He has time to clean up blood from multiple areas of the house. He has time to stage the scene. He has time to put pants on her body to cover up stab wounds. He has time to come up with an explanation for the broken glass. And only then, only after all that planning and staging and covering up, does he finally call 911 and put on his performance. What does that say about someone? What kind of person can do that? Can sit there with the body of someone they claim to love and calculate how to get away with it? We talk a lot on this channel about red flags, about warning signs, about patterns of behavior that escalate to violence. Darron Lee's case is a textbook example of all of that. He had multiple arrests for domestic violence, multiple victims, multiple chances for the system to stop him before it got to this point. And every time he got a slap on the wrist, every time, he walked away with minimal consequences, until Gabriella paid the price for all of those failures, until she became the victim that the system couldn't save because they didn't take his violence seriously enough the first 5 times. So here are the questions I want you to think about. At what point do we start treating domestic violence with the seriousness it deserves? At what point do we stop giving violent offenders chance after chance until someone ends up dead? And in this new age of artificial intelligence, how do we prevent technology from becoming a tool for criminals to cover their tracks? Because if Lee gets convicted, and the evidence certainly seems to point that way, this case is going to set a precedent. It's going to show that your ChatGPT history can be used against you in court, that asking an AI how to cover up a crime is evidence of premeditation, that technology leaves a trail just like everything else. Gabriella Carvalho Perpétuo deserved better. She deserved a system that would have stopped Lee before he got to her. She deserved protection that never came. And now her family deserves justice. If this case makes you angry, if it makes you want to see change, let me know in the comments. Share your thoughts. And please hit that like button and subscribe to Shadow Crime, because we're going to follow this case all the way through trial. We're not going to let Gabriella's story be forgotten. Someone has to keep telling it.